In a disgusting and pathetic act of corruption and cronyism, Donald Trump has commuted the sentence of convicted former Congressman George Santos, Lion George, who, of course, split the atom, won an Emmy, Oscar, and SAG award, and previously went to Mars. That guy, remember him? He is out of prison. Donald Trump announcing this on his Truth Social, where he said, quote, George Santos was somewhat of a rogue, but there are many rogues throughout our country that aren't forced to serve 7 years in prison. I started to think about George when the subject of Democrat Senator Richard Da Nang Dick Blumenthal came up again. As everyone remembers, Da Nang stated for almost 20 years that he was a proud Vietnam veteran, having endured the worst of the war, watching the wounded and dead as he raced up the hills and down the valleys, blood streaming from his face. He was a great hero, he would leak to any and all who would listen. And then it happened. He was a complete and total fraud. He never went to Vietnam. He never saw Vietnam. He never experienced the battles there or anywhere else. His war hero status and even minimal service in our military was totally and completely made up. This is far worse than what George Santos did, and at least Santos had the courage, conviction, and intelligence to always vote Republican. George has been in solitary confinement for long stretches of time, and by all accounts has been horribly mistreated. Therefore, I just signed a commutation releasing George Santos from prison immediately. Good luck, George. Have a great life. Now, you might be looking at this and going, why is Trump talking about Senator Blumenthal mostly in his message about releasing George Santos from prison? And it's because it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. First and foremost, why does Donald Trump feel the need to mention anything Richard Blumenthal said when this is about George Santos? Now, importantly, if you only read this truth post, you would wrongly think that George Santos was in prison for lying about his background, that George Santos is in prison because he claimed to be Jewish when he isn't, or he claimed to be a volleyball star when he wasn't, or he claimed to have a degree that he didn't have, or he claimed to have a business background that he didn't have, or that he had business accomplishments that he didn't really accomplish. That's not why George Santos was in prison. George Santos was in prison for crimes that he actually committed, financial crimes and other things. But if you read this, you would go, oh, they imprisoned him for making stuff up about his background. That's not the case. Maybe just as importantly, Donald Trump gives up the game with this capitalized always vote Republican. He had the intelligence to always vote Republican. At the end of the day, this is about loyalty. Trump cares about two things. Is someone loyal to me, and are they physically attractive? I guess with George, the issue is not whether he is physically attractive to Trump. That's the issue with some people that Trump likes, but not all of them. And with George Santos, the critical part is the loyalty. But there is one other aspect to this that I think is important to mention, because people were texting me this morning. Why would Trump, what is the real reason Trump would do this? Like, why does Trump even really care? Just let George Santos sit there. Is it to trigger the left, or what is this about? This is we're speculating now, okay? George Santos for a long time has been claiming that he has dirt about the Republican Party. He sort of suggested that he was going to burn it all down when he was on his way to prison, saying, I know about the Republicans involved in orgies. I know about the anti-gay Republicans who are actually gay themselves. I'm going to burn it down and take everybody with me. We always have to be open to the possibility with Donald Trump that people came to Trump and said, listen, we are really worried that Santos is going to spill the beans in a way that will be destructive for the Republican Party. What about commuting his sentence, which then will give you leverage, sir, Mr. President, to make sure that he shuts up? It is completely and totally speculative, but it is exactly the sort of thing that Donald Trump would do. And in fact, it kind of aligns with our speculation with regard to what's going on with the Epstein files. As I've said before, we could guess what's in the Epstein files about Trump, but I am not at all ready to say that Trump is in the Epstein files as a perpetrator. I know that there are some of you in my audience who think the Epstein files will reveal that Donald Trump sexually assaulted this, that, or the other underage person. It's theoretically possible, but until we have that evidence, I'm not ready to say that. It appears more likely that Donald Trump's concern with the Epstein files is that a lot of his friends, supporters, and loyalists would be implicated, and that it would therefore be bad for Trump by association, indirectly, by being bad for the Republican Party, and that is why Donald Trump is trying to suppress the release of the Epstein files. It may be the exact same thing with George Santos. So Trump said he would drain the swamp. Hard to think of a bigger swamp filling thing than to commute the sentence of a guy who clearly, I mean, they had him dead to rights on all of the charges. He is a lifelong fraudster, criminal, liar, etc. The idea would be, why would he do it? Well, to protect the party and to try to prevent the fallout. What do you think? Leave me a comment. What is the real reason that Donald Trump is doing this?